It's 6 in the evening. You have done everything the advice said to do. You stayed warm, you named the feeling. You did not yell and you did not punish. And your 4-year-old is still on the kitchen floor, screaming, and you are standing there wondering what exactly you did wrong. Here is the thing nobody tells you in that moment. There is a very large body of research on positive parenting. Parts of it are better than you have been told. And one central piece of it has just failed the hardest test anyone has ever run on it. So this video does 2 things. First, what the evidence actually ranks as the ingredients that matter. Second, the part that did not survive. Both are true at the same time. That is usually how this goes. Let's start with the best map anyone drew of this. In 2008, a team at the Centers for Disease Control published a review in the Journal of Abnormal Child Psychology. Jennifer Wyatt Kaminsky, Linda Ann Val, Jill Filene, and Cynthia Boyle. 77 published evaluations of parent training programs, children from birth to age 7. They asked a question almost nobody asks. Not does parent training work, but which ingredients inside it track the biggest results. 4 things came out on top. Teaching parents emotional communication skills, learning to name what a child is feeling and to respond to it rather than to the noise. Increasing genuinely positive parent-child interaction, not as a reward, as a baseline. Consistency, doing the same thing on Tuesday that you did on Monday. And this one is the most practical finding in the whole review. Programs that made parents practice the new skill with their own child, in the room, during the session, did better than programs that only explained it. Reading about it is not the same as doing it once while someone watches. The research is quite clear on that gap. Now the one that surprises people. Timeout was associated with larger effects, not smaller. If you have spent the last decade being told that timeouts damage your child, that sentence probably landed strangely. So let's trace where that idea came from, because the trail is short. In 2014, Time magazine ran a piece by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson titled, "Timeouts Are Hurting Your Child." It traveled everywhere. In 2019, Mark Dadds and Lucy Tully wrote about this in American Psychologist. They document that the authors of that article later largely recanted most of what they wrote in it. The recantation did not travel. The headline did. That is not a scandal. That is just how this works, and it is worth knowing that it works that way. I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to overcorrect. The evidence that appropriately used timeout is fine is real, but a lot of it is survey data collected at a single moment. That is not strong evidence. It is just stronger than the thing it replaced. Some things were associated with smaller effects, and this is where I have to slow down. Teaching parents problem solving. Teaching parents to promote their child's cognitive, academic, or social skills, and adding extra support services on top of the program. Please do not hear that as harmful. It does not mean teaching your child's social skills hurts them. That would be a serious misreading. It means programs that carried more content produced smaller changes. The most likely explanation is dilution. You add a 5th thing, and the first 4 get less attention. And a much larger review in 2022 found exactly that pattern again. Focused programs outperformed programs loaded with every component available. More is not the mechanism. Fewer things, done consistently, is closer to the mechanism. Now I have to tell you something about every number I just gave you. Not one of those studies took a group of families and randomly assigned half of them to use timeout and half of them not to. That experiment was never run. What that review did was compare whole programs that happened to contain different ingredients and look at which menus went with bigger results. Which means the programs that included emotional communication training might also have had better trained therapists, or longer sessions, or different families walking through the door. This is not me being clever at the expense of the researchers. They know, the field knows. A network analysis of 197 randomized trials, published in 2022, says it in print. The older component methods fail to account for how components operate together. So when I say emotional communication ranked highest, here it is. The programs that contained it did better. Not, this ingredient was tested and it won. One more thing, and I would rather say it than if you find it later. The specific numbers behind that ranking do not appear in the paper's own abstract. I got them from a third-party summary of the study. The direction I am confident about. The decimal places I am not going to put on screen as though the authors handed them to me. Which brings us to the part that failed. Here is the problem that has haunted this entire field for 40 years. Warm parents tend to have well-behaved children. Everyone agrees on that. It shows up in study after study. But warm parents and their children also share genes, and a calm child is easier to be warm with. The arrow could point either way, or both ways, or neither. So researchers built designs to strip that out. Twin studies, sibling comparisons, children of twins, adoption studies, designs where the genetic explanation is held still and you get closer to a real causal answer. In 2025, a team led by Karwatoska with Salmi, Baldwin, Jaffe, Vidding, Pingault, and DeStavola pooled 45 of those studies in Psychological Bulletin. 28 separate cohorts, 38,591 people. Negative parenting, harshness, hostility, coercion held up. It kept its association with disruptive behavior once genetics were accounted for. Positive parenting did not. Their words, the meta-analysis of positive parenting practices found no association with disruptive behavior symptoms and greater variability across studies. The confidence interval crosses 0. Statistically, that is a null result. I want to be extremely careful with what that does and does not mean, because this is exactly the sentence that gets clipped and ruined. It does not mean warmth is pointless. It does not mean your relationship with your child does not matter. Nobody found that, and I am not saying it. What it means is narrower and more useful. As of right now, the causal evidence for removing harshness is stronger than the causal evidence for adding positive techniques. Those are two different claims, and the parenting internet has been treating them as one claim for 20 years. If you are going to spend your limited energy somewhere, the better supported lever is the harsh moment you are trying not to have, not the fifth connection technique you are trying to remember at 6 in the evening. And that brings up the branded version of all this. Gentle parenting. In 2024, Pezzella and Davidson published the first real look at it in PLOS 1. Their sentence is blunt. Despite its popularity, gentle parenting has received no empirical scrutiny. Their own study was 100 parents at one point in time, and this is the part that matters. It measured the parents, not the children. So the honest position is this. The ingredients gentle parenting borrows: warmth, emotional communication, not humiliating your kid. Those have support. The branded package as a named approach with claimed child outcomes does not have a child outcome evidence base yet. Not a weak one, not yet a one. One more finding, because it may be the most practically important one here. A 2019 review of 154 trials found that these programs work far better for children who are already struggling than for children in general. Run as universal prevention, the effect is small. Run with families whose child already has serious behavior difficulties, it is several times larger. And the same review found something quietly deflating. No specific technique predicted better long-term outcomes. Short-term, yes. Years later, the technique-level differences stopped showing up. So, what is actually left standing? Reducing harsh moments has the strongest causal support of anything discussed here. Consistency beats intensity. The same ordinary response repeated is worth more than a perfect response invented on the spot. Practicing a skill once, with your own child, beats reading about it 5 times. Doing fewer things well beats collecting techniques. And if your child is genuinely struggling, structured programs help most exactly there. That is not a failure on your part. That is the population where the evidence is strongest. None of that is a miracle. All of it is small. Small and real is what the research actually offers, and I would rather hand you that than something louder. That is what this channel is for. One study, traced to where it actually came from, including the parts that weaken it. If we get one wrong, tell us. We will fix it in public with our name on the correction. Sources for everything in this video are in the description.